How does an enthusiastic and inexperienced second lieutenant survive 2 combat tours in Vietnam to become a storied 4-star Marine Corps general? This is the beginning of that story, through war, combat, and leadership, spanning 39 years in the United States Marine Corps and serving in over 70 countries. This is the extraordinary life of General Tony Zinni. I'm Adam P. Kennedy. Thank you for joining us. In this show, we feature one of the Marine Corps' finest, General Tony Zinni. General Zinni is a retired 4-star United States Marine Corps general. He was Commander-in-Chief of the U.S. Central Command and served as the U.S. Special Envoy to Israel and the Palestinian Authority. During the Vietnam War, he served 2 combat tours. The greatest warriors and leaders in American history. Conversations with Adam P. Kennedy. It's coming up right now. Tony Zinni was born in Bryn Mawr, Pennsylvania in 1943. His parents immigrants from Abruzzo, Italy. He grew up in Philadelphia attending Catholic schools. In the fall of 1961, he enrolled in Villanova University, where he enlisted in the Marine Corps on his very first day of school. After graduating Villanova in 1965, Second Lieutenant Zinni attended the Army Special Warfare School. March 1967. Army Special Warfare School, Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Second Lieutenant Zinni is sent to Saigon, Vietnam, where he joins the 4th Battalion Vietnamese Marines as an American advisor. By the beginning of 1967, there were 490,000 American troops in South Vietnam. Congress had authorized $4.5 billion for the war. From February 22nd to May 14, 1967, the largest U.S. military offensive of the war occurred. Operation Junction City involved 22 U.S. and 4 South Vietnamese battalions attempting to destroy the NVA's Central Office headquarters in South Vietnam.
There were 2 officers per battalion. One was a senior captain that stayed with the battalion commander, the other the junior advisor, usually a junior captain, sometimes a first lieutenant, and they went out with the companies and squads and platoons, and there were no radio operators or others around, just Vietnamese Marines and 2 Americans.
As an American advisor with the Vietnamese Marines, Second Lieutenant Zinni's primary duties were to help coordinate fire support, air capability, and operations with U.S. units. Second Lieutenant Zinni had gone through the basic school, the Army Special Warfare School, and the course for advisors, but experiencing his first firefight was a brand new challenge.
The battalion CP was set up in this house that was just blown apart. It was like a mud hut, you know, a house like typical up there, thatch roof and all, but half of it had been blown away. I met the battalion commander, Vietnamese battalion commander, and so the advisor told me, we've been heavy fighting all day. So then he says to me, we'll get hit tonight for sure, so make sure you're ready. So I'm thinking, this is it. It's a fighting. So this part of this house is blown away. It's just a wall back here,
okay,
and there's nothing in it. So I lay my poncho out, my poncho liner. Moon is really bright. You can see really well. So I had a M16 then. I got the first M16. Everybody was awed by it. They issued it to me. I turned it in later and got a grease gun. I liked it better. It's cooler. But I had this M16. I lay it down. So then I'm thinking, we get hit. What I got to be able to do is come up, get my rifle, roll out, and be ready to fire. So I have it all figured out what I'm doing. Of course, the advisor's next to me. I go to sleep. Next thing you know, whole world opens up. You know, it's the middle of the night. As soon as I open up, first thing I realize, pitch black. I mean, the moon is gone. So, and there's rounds hitting everywhere. So I do my roll in the M16, and I can't see anything. I mean, it's completely black and dark. So I said to the advisor, I said, hey, I can't see anything. He said, you're facing the back of the house. So when I rolled up, I end up being 180 out. The battalion commander's looking at me. I'm facing that way. They're all facing this way. So the rounds are hitting all over, we're shooting back until finally, it all calms down and we go back to sleep. And I'm thinking, this was my first firefight. It's the first time I've been shot at in my life, all the rounds around. So the next morning, the light starts to come up, the light, and they had introduced me to my radio operator and what they call a cowboy. Cowboy kind of takes care of you. He fixes your coffee in the morning, does all this stuff. He's your security because as an advisor, you're calling an artillery naval gunfire. So they have one Marine that kind of is your Batman. Okay. So I'm now feeling pretty good. Like I've got my baptism of fire. So I step out in front of the house, in this one area, and I got my hands on my hip, and I'm looking down at the rice paddies, there. Zing! This round comes right between my legs. So I dive back in the house, and the cowboy, he comes up to me with a hot cup of coffee in a canteen cup, and he dug out the round from inside, and he hands it to me, and he says in Vietnamese, "Do not be stupid." That's a good lesson,
What are you thinking? I mean, you thinking?
I was exhilarated. I couldn't sleep. I just thought, this is it, man. You've made you're in the big leagues now. Yeah. This is it. It's like making your first tackle or something. You need to get hit, or at least shot at. And so now I'm excited. I want to get it. I want to get on with it. And so the next we move up, I go across the paddies. I'm with the executive officer. We started to sweep out toward the west. We'd make the contact. Maybe the next day you would. Next day you get into a heavier firefight. Next time maybe it'd just be trading shots. But it was continuous contact like that. We were on this wood line, and very close in, there was another wood line, very small paddy area in between. And we had we were going to cross over. Well, they had dug in on the other side. So they opened up, and obviously it was a good size unit. They were really, they had some indirect fire weapons, RPGs and things. So, and this was about 500 meters, 400 meters away. We're in this heavy fight. So the XO says to me, "Can you put some artillery on them?" Now, I had never called in an artillery mission, even in training. So I never had done it. So I knew how to do it, but I never did it. So I said, okay. So I get on the hook because I knew, who had to call for artillery support, get back to artillery support. So I called the artillery mission straight on to the target. And I wanted to be sure I had it right. So I stood up next to this palm tree, and I'm really engrossed in this artillery mission. And I'm calling it, and I call it, and the artillery guys were right on. They put it right on this, and it's blowing up. And there's not only rounds coming all around me, which I am oblivious to because I'm concentrating. I have the hand set in the map, and I'm looking at where the rounds are impacting. I'm not thinking about anything else going on. But now, not only are they shooting at me, now the artillery was coming in so close, it's taking off the top of the trees. So the XO, I feel something tugging on me. I look at the XO who's down on the ground. He said, "Get down!" So I got down. So I didn't think anything about this. We obviously blew him away, crossed, and I'm walking by, and I got all these Vietnamese Marines looking at me, kind of impressed as hell. So I said to the XO, "Why are they looking at me?" He said, "They think you're a hero." I said, "Why?" He says, "You stood up under all that fire to call the mission in." I said, "I did?" Then he said, "And you didn't even call danger close. You put the artillery right in. You didn't even creep it in. You shot it right in, and it was danger close." And I said, "What's danger close?" He said, "What?" He said, "If you're within 500 meters, it's a danger close. Usually you try to creep it, from back in." Oh, okay. So now the Vietnamese Marines think, "Oh, this guy's got a big set. I mean, he is out there." And I'm thinking, Jesus, I could have been killed.
That's funny. You're John Wayne, right?
Yeah.
As the only American on these patrols, Second Lieutenant Zinni faced daunting and unusual challenges.
it's a tough environment to live in. You know, we had these nylon hammocks. You can't sleep on the ground, so you're up in the trees, which makes you more vulnerable, you know, with the hammocks, because there's all kinds of stuff on the ground, from fire ants to snakes. I woke up my hammock one morning, all the Vietnamese Marines said, you know, what's going on? I kind of pushed my poncho aside. I got this 12-foot python on the branch, and he had eaten something there. So, of course, the Vietnamese Marines, you know, they say, okay, let's move away from here. Oh no, we're going to eat that baby. You know, so they cut the branch down. So for 6 days, we're carting this thing around, who's getting more lively as we're getting there. You know, they had sewed his mouth shut, and they wrapped him around this bamboo pole and tried to tie. So we're humping through, you know, looking for bad guys. They would stop for 2 hours a day, and we'd set up a base, and they would hunt or forage for breadfruit, bamboo shoots. They'd shoot a monkey and kill a snake. They would carry 12 balls of sticky rice. They had these like little aluminum tubes. They would cook it, and you'd have 12 balls. You would eat one of those balls each day. And then they would take live chickens that they would buy in the village, and they would gag the chicken, tie it across their pack. So we'd kill the chickens the first day out, but you had to eat the chickens right away. So, you know, about day 2 or 3, now it's, with the exception of the rice, you know, a ball about that size, now it's whatever you can get. And the one thing that's really interesting about that is, you know, how if you're an American and you're eating, you know, MREs or C rations in those days and everything, you're thinking about the enemy. Now, for the first time, I'm realizing you're not only thinking about the enemy, but you're looking at things as potential food. And so the hierarchy of needs, now food and fresh water become critically important. Where are you going to get it, and how you're going to get it. And so that even competes with what you're doing to make sure, you know, you can detect enemy or see them coming.
Are you patrolling many of the same villages? Can you talk about an encounter you remember the most?
We took down a regimental hospital. I was up in this village, and I'd been there with a different battalion. This is the one up in the mountains. And I got to know all the villagers and all the people in the village really well. And one day, this mother came to me with her baby, and the baby, his face was swollen out to here. I mean, it really looked horrible. And she said, help me with my baby. So I called to the 1st Air Cavalry, and I said, I got a baby in the village that, you know, something's wrong with the baby, and I don't know, is there anything we can do? And they say, well, we'll send out a helicopter, we'll take it to Queen Yan and, you know, the hospital there. So I told her we're going to get, she was afraid now, a helicopter. I said, well, they're going to take you to a Vietnamese hospital in Queen Yan, you know, which is a city on the coast. So she said, can I take my aunt and, you know, my mother? I said, sure. So the Army helicopter's coming in, they're nervous. They pulled down their pants and peed in the landing zone. The pilots and we got them on. Now, fast forward about a month and a half later.
I was back up in that village with a different Vietnamese Marine unit. And the company commander that I was with said, there's somebody in this village says they know you. And I told him I'd been here before. And she came up with the baby, and the baby looked very healthy. And she was tremendously thankful, and she wanted to do something for us. So she said, I can tell you where the Viet Cong are. And she pointed to a place not far away and on a map and said they're dug into tunnels there underground. We went out to the area, and you couldn't see anything. I mean, they were well camouflaged and dug in. So we're able to uncover the entry points, and we threatened, obviously, that we would throw hand grenades in or something. They didn't give up, and they surrendered, and it turned out to be a regimental hospital for the local Viet Cong unit that was in that region. And so the entire staff had surrendered. And when they came out, we notified the battalion. Our battalion doctor, or surgeon that was with us, Vietnamese, when he heard the name of the senior doctor, realized he went to medical school with him in France. And so he came up, and we had a big dinner with all the medical staff, and everybody, you know, talked about old times. And then after that, we handcuffed him and took him away.
During his experiences in Vietnam, Second Lieutenant Zinni was continually faced with unique situations that called for quick thinking.
We're about halfway out, and I'm hearing a firefight. And as we get a little closer, I'm hearing this firefight's getting louder and more intense. And there was nothing on a TACnet about a firefight back when I was in the CP or anything. So I said to the lieutenant, what's going on? So he calls in the company commander. He said, they've got enemy on 3 sides of them. So we had to circle all the way around to the one side that was open and said, this is the only way we're going to be able to get in. And I'd been with this company commander before, and I didn't like him. He was a real prima donna. He knew how to maneuver his troops, but he couldn't put the fires and the maneuver together. And he couldn't manage more than one thing at a time. So when we got in there, I realized he is up to his ears in bad guys, and their numbers are growing, and they're fighting them off literally at close range. And he hasn't reported back anything, hasn't called for any fires. So I'm trying to figure out where his lines are, what he is, and he's all confused. And so I called back and said, right, they're in a heavy firefight. Well, nobody back there, the senior advisors don't believe me. I said, this guy's he is in a shit sandwich. I said, I got to get me some air observers up, and get an airstrike ready or something, because we need we're going to have to deal with this. It's getting heavy. So then he turns to me and he says, we're almost out of ammo. I said, now's a nice time to tell me. So I called back and I said, we need an ammo resupply right away. And they said, well, what kind of ammo? Well, they had grease guns, Thompsons, M1, so it's 30 caliber 45. They said, put box of 30 caliber 45, get it out here. Then the Army helicopter pilot comes in. I said, look, there's only one way you can come in. You come in this way. He comes in, he lands, dumps off the ammo, heavy firefight. I said, go back the way you came in. He decides, so now I'm going to go take a look at the enemy. I said, don't do it. He goes, flies up, takes a shit pot full of rounds. Fortunately, didn't knock him down. And now they're getting the word in the back, helicopter got shot up, and what the hell's going on? I'm trying to explain to them what's happening out there. And they're trying to break open the ammo. Then the company commander turns to me and he says, I've ordered fixed bayonets. We're down to our last rounds. So I said, holy shit. So now they're all, the guys that have the M1s are fixing their bayonets and all. They got like 2 or 3 rounds each, just trying to get ammo out to them.
And I had my head leaning against one of the huts in the village trying to make the call, and I was spun around by my radio operator, and I saw this Viet Cong. He had broken through the lines. He had a Thompson submachine gun, and he started shooting at us. And we were maybe 25 yards away, and he was spraying above our head. And I went for my 45 and realized it wasn't there. My radio operator had taken it out of my holster, and he was shooting back, and he wasn't hitting anything. So I just yelled at him. I said, go get him. He was trying to change magazines. I went out and he grabbed him, and he brought him back to where we were. So now I had a prisoner, and he was an old guy. So now I'm trying to call in this airstrike, same time, make sure we're keeping an eye on the prisoner, and obviously, hoping I'm not going to see an attack break through. We got the ammo out just in the nick of time, so we started to really gain control in the firefight, and they withdrew, they backed off and started to reorganize again. But then by that time, the airstrike came in.
August 1970, Amphibious Warfare School, Quantico, Virginia. After spending 6 months at the Amphibious Warfare School, Captain Zinni is sent to the Quezon Valley in command of Company A, 1st Battalion, 5th U.S. Marines.
The Marines in I Corps decided they wanted to have a force, this powerful force, that it could commit very quickly, right at an enemy contact, rescue downed helicopters, do things like that, like a special force. This was to be something that you could quickly throw out there when you spotted the enemy or you had them. It should be very powerful, the force. It should be capable of very short notice employment and build it up. There hadn't been anything like this before. This was great, because when I got there, I hadn't heard of this. It was really interesting. I had to learn some of the weapon systems. We had this automatic grenade launcher that you cranked and it shot out all these grenades, had this multi-shot flamethrower. We had 9 machine guns instead of 6, 9 machine guns. Much larger weapon systems. Like I said, my own Kid Carson scouts, my own scout dogs, my own engineers. I mean, it was Battlestar Galactica. It's huge. It was like a battalion. So the battalion commander says, we got a very unique mission. He said there was a report of some Viet Cong at possibly a meeting in some village, and they had gone out to that area. They inserted one of our other companies, and when they went in, there were some shots exchanged. They killed some VC. one guy stood up and started running, and instead of shooting him, this Lance Corporal gets up, runs after him, tackles him, brings him back in. He turns out to be the highest ranking intelligence officer ever captured in the war. Wow. His name was Loy. He agreed that he would lead us into his intelligence headquarters in the Quezon Mountains. So they put a recon screen around this area where he sort of indicated it was. Then they took one of our other companies that was on Pacifier 2, and they flew it out to some of the hilltops around the area. And what they told me is I would take this guy, Loy. He had it's called an ITT team, an interrogation translator team, with him, but I spoke some Vietnamese. And Loy would lead us to where his headquarters was. We're moving up the hill, and I had great scouts. I mean, my scouts were super. Never trip a booby trap. They could smell them. My best scout comes back. And he was a little black kid from Washington, D.C., inner city. Why this guy would be the best scout out in the woods? This guy was phenomenal, you know. Very quiet kid, never said a word. So he comes back, he says, "Sir, we got guys in front of us." He said, "Come on up here." I go up, and there's these like little dugout areas in between the rocks. There was a little rice cooking. It was like a sentinel post or listening post. And they were dug in, and they had strung some hasty booby traps across, and this kid, you know, pick up every booby trap there, booby trap there. So I said, okay, let's be really careful now. I said, I'm going to move up with the scouts. And I got this guy, Loy, with me. And we're starting to head up, and we're about now maybe about 500 yards from the top of the hill. And I see all these trail networks and places where their listening posts were becoming more frequent. So I'm realizing these guys know where we are. They know we're coming. If it's where I think it is on the other side of the hill, you know, we're going to make contact pretty soon. So I called back the trainer and I said, I want to get off the trails, you know, because they know we're on the trails. They know where the trails are. I said, I want to circle around and come up the draw from the bottom. He said, it's getting late in the day. You got all the way around, do that. He said, if they know we're here, they could be burning documents, they could be destroying things, they could, you know, figuring a way to get out. He said, I need you to, if this is what Loy says is the way in, I need you, he said, I know this is tough staying on the trail. I need you to stay on those trails and go and get in there as soon as possible. Yes, sir. So we're now about 150 yards from the top. And Loy keeps moving up and he's moving back. He's moving up and then he goes sideways. Well, what he's causing my platoon to do is accordion. So I'm up front keeping them spread out because I know we're going to get hit. And he all of a sudden turns to me and he says, they won't let you go any further. And I said, who won't let us go any further? He says, they have two companies on top of this hill. You know, one mainline VC, one NVA. And we had some Cobras up, you know, and so I called right away to get the Cobras up. I want to take a look at this ridge line. And all of a sudden, they open up on us. And I was getting the handset from my radio operator, and I take 3 rounds, you know, right away. I'm hit right away. So I'm down, and now we're in this firefight.
One of my platoon commanders was next to me. A corpsman came up. He called his corpsman up. Of course, there's still a firefight, and we're very close to where all the fighting is, right in front of us, because we had moved way up with my point men.
We're not quite at the top of the hill now, and they have the top of the hill. So I look up to my left, and I see a little knoll, and I kind of see the bad guys rushing toward the knoll, and I realize that knoll is going to control fires down on either side. So I grabbed him and I said, get somebody up there, get a squad up there with a machine gun, you got to beat those guys up there. So one of the squad leaders, a sergeant there, Bamber, he said, I got my squad, takes a machine gun team, he rushes up, he takes the knoll, now we got some machine gun fire kind of going down with him. Some of my lead guys, the lead point men I had got hit, so I'm hearing calls from corpsmen. So the corpsman, one of the corpsmen is up with me, this is Doc Miller, and he's trying to help me. I'm talking to the platoon commander, trying to tell him what to do, and I feel like I'm going in and out. So he and the corpsman, I'm in like a ditch, they help me, they take off the flak jacket, and a piece of my back falls out. You know, what's that, like a chunk of meat? You know, and of course Myers' eyes of this thing was a good kid though. He did everything right that day. And of course, yeah, the corpsmen, it's just like Marines in combat, they're brutally honest. There's no bedside manner. And he looks and he goes, Jesus Christ, sir. He said, I can see your spine. You're shot to hell here. He said, you're losing a lot of blood. So, and Bob is trying to take out his, one of the bandages, and he's trying to patch me. And I can't really see what he's doing, but I could tell he's trying to figure out how to put this patch on, because I guess it's all screwed up and the corpsman's tying it up. So he's got me patched up, and the corpsman says to me, I'm trying to tell him what to do, move up, move that unit up. And he says, keep pinching the back of your leg. And I said, why? He said, I can see your spine. He says, I don't know if you could be paralyzed. You're going to keep seeing if you have feeling in your leg. So I'm pinching the bottom of my leg while I'm trying to do all this stuff, get the, talk to the Cobras. And it's just, and the lead point men are starting to, a couple of them are hit. They're yelling for a corpsman. So I get Doc Miller. I said, they need you up there. And it literally, where we are to where they are, is just rounds are hitting all over. And he looked out there and he saw those rounds hit. He's got to rush through all these rounds. And he ran up, and I said, get a squad up there and let's get those wounded back, and let's take that, move up and take the position. And the best squad leader I had in my company, kid's named Rocky Slewinski. He says, sir, they're my guys. That's my squad. I get them out. He takes the rest of his squad, rushes up. So you're seeing all this, heroism and it going on around you.
Thank you for joining us. See you next time on the greatest warriors and leaders in modern American history. Conversations with Adam P. Kennedy.